The galaxy was silent in a way that made even the stars seem afraid. Worlds that once glittered with life were now shrouded in smoke and shadow. The Althari, a proud and ancient race, had fought countless battles over centuries, yet this time they were on the edge of extinction. Their fleets had been shattered, their cities burned, and their leaders forced into hiding. Every attempt to defend themselves had failed. In their desperation, the Althari did the unthinkable. They sent a final message across the stars. It was a plea that no one could ignore, not even the humans. The message carried fear, shame, and hope all at once. Please, help us. Our race is dying. Only you can save us. For centuries, humans had been known in whispers and stories across the galaxy. Many races thought them strange, reckless, and unpredictable. They had never been the largest, the strongest, or the most advanced, but they were feared nonetheless. Legends told of humans surviving impossible odds, of entire fleets being outsmarted by their cunning strategies, and of worlds saved by their unbreakable will. Now, the Althari had no choice. Their pride demanded they fight, but their survival demanded they beg. The message traveled through the void faster than light, carrying a tone of desperation that made even seasoned diplomats shiver. On Earth, the message arrived quietly. In the command center of the United Earth Space Council, humans gathered to read it. Admiral Kira Voss, a tall woman with sharp eyes and a calm voice, studied the plea carefully. She could feel the fear radiating from the words, but also the respect hidden beneath it. The Althari were asking for help, not because they expected humans to save them without reason, but because they knew humans would act decisively if they chose to intervene. Kira looked at her crew. "This is not a request we can ignore," she said. "The Althari are in trouble, but we do not act out of pity. We act because it is right. And because, if we act, the galaxy will remember." The humans did not rush. They analyzed every detail of the Althari's message, studied the situation, and prepared a response. They were not afraid, but they understood the gravity of the task. Entire civilizations hung in the balance. Every decision mattered. Meanwhile, the Althari watched the stars, praying for an answer. Their fleets were scattered, their defenses broken. They could not understand the humans fully. They never had. Humans were unpredictable, unrelenting, and utterly fearless. Many had tried to challenge them in the past, and all had failed. Now the Althari's survival depended on beings they barely knew. Time seemed to stretch. Days passed, though in space time itself felt meaningless. And then the humans responded. The message was short, clear, and firm. "We will help, but we do not save those who rely on fear or weakness alone. We act for honor, for courage, and for justice." The Althari could not believe it. This was not a negotiation. This was not a promise for diplomacy. It was a statement of human power and principle. And for the first time in decades, a flicker of hope appeared in the hearts of the Althari. Across the void, humanity began to move. Ships of incredible size and strength awakened from their silent orbits. Engines glowed like molten stars. Weapons hummed with deadly precision. But it was not the power of the ships alone that made them terrifying. It was the certainty in every human action, the calm confidence in their eyes, the knowledge that they would not fail. The Althari whispered among themselves, "We are saved, but not by mercy, by something far greater." And somewhere, deep in the endless darkness of space, the humans prepared to enter a battlefield that had already swallowed countless lives. What they were about to do would not only change the fate of the Althari, it would leave the galaxy silent in awe of the human race. Admiral Kira Voss stood on the bridge of the Supreme, the largest warship ever built by humanity. The room was alive with quiet energy. Crew members moved with purpose, checking weapons, scanning the void, and plotting courses through the stars. Each person knew the stakes. The Althari's survival, and perhaps the balance of the galaxy, rested on what humanity would do next. Kira's eyes scanned the holographic display before her. Stars, planets, fleets, and enemy positions shimmered in blue and gold. The Althari fleets were scattered and broken, and their enemies, the warlords who had terrorized countless systems, were powerful and merciless. But humans had a plan. "Every move counts," Kira said, her voice calm but firm. "We are not here to negotiate or plead. We are here to act. We will protect the innocent, destroy the oppressors, and leave no doubt in the galaxy that humans do not fail when duty calls." Her officers nodded. The message had spread through the fleet. Humans were not coming as saviors to beg mercy. They were coming as a force of nature, Ships that had been silent for decades now powered up, their engines glowing with quiet intensity. Weapons systems hummed, shields flared, and the fleet moved in perfect formation. In the training chambers, young cadets rehearsed maneuvers. Some had never seen a real battle, yet they moved with confidence. They trusted their commanders, their ships, and their instincts. Humanity had faced impossible odds before, and it had survived. They knew that courage, intelligence, and determination could overcome even the deadliest threats. Meanwhile, deep in Althari space, the enemy watched. They had no idea what was coming. They had heard stories of humans. Some feared them, some laughed, but nothing in their experience could prepare them for what was about to unfold. They assumed the humans would negotiate, perhaps offer supplies, maybe even mercy. They were wrong. Kira stood before the fleet's communication console. She sent a single message to the Althari. "We will come. Stay alive. Be ready to fight alongside us. Trust in your courage." The Althari received it and could barely believe it. For centuries, they had fought their battles alone, struggling against impossible odds. And now humans, unknown, unpredictable, unstoppable, were coming to stand with them. Some whispered in disbelief, some wept silently. Pride had kept them alive for millennia, but hope, fragile as it was, now burned in their hearts. In the war rooms of the human fleet, strategists worked tirelessly. Every map, every calculation, every scenario was studied. They analyzed enemy strengths and weaknesses, the geography of planets and asteroid fields, and the morale of both ally and foe. But humans did not rely solely on brute force. They relied on intelligence, cunning, and foresight. Their plans were precise yet flexible. Outside the fleet, the void of space seemed endless and still. But beneath that silence, engines roared softly, shields glimmered, and weapons waited. Humanity had a rhythm to its preparation. Quiet, disciplined, unstoppable. Even the Althari, who had fought in countless wars, could sense it. There was a difference in the humans. They did not act out of fear, desperation, or pride. They acted out of purpose, and that purpose made them dangerous beyond imagining. Kira turned to her crew one last time before departure. "Remember this," she said, her voice steady and full of quiet authority. "We fight not because we want glory, but because it is the right thing to do. Every life we save, every enemy we stop echoes across the galaxy. Humans do not fail when the innocent call for help. Never forget that." The fleet aligned, engines flaring, weapons ready. The humans were moving, silent and deadly, toward a war that would shake the galaxy to its core. Somewhere across the void, the Althari held their breath. For the first time in decades, they believed that salvation was coming. Not by chance, not by diplomacy, but by the humans. And in the hearts of every human on the bridge of the Supreme, there was certainty. The galaxy was about to witness what humans could do when hope, courage, and strength combined. The void of space stretched endlessly, dark and quiet, yet it was full of tension. The human fleet approached the Althari system with silent precision. Their ships moved like shadows, vast and powerful, yet each one controlled with perfect discipline. The enemy had no idea what was coming. On the bridge of the Supreme, Admiral Kira Voss watched the holographic display. Red icons marked the warlord fleets, scattered but deadly. Every commander knew the risk. One wrong move could turn the battle into disaster. But humans were not ordinary. They had faced extinction before, fought wars where hope seemed lost, and yet they had always prevailed. Today would be no different. "Deploy reconnaissance drones," Kira ordered. "We need complete information before we strike. Every fleet, every formation, every weakness must be known." Crew members activated the drones, which zipped silently into enemy territory. Data streamed back in real time. Weak points appeared, patterns formed, and strategies became clear. Humans were not rushing. They would strike where it hurt the enemy most with precision, efficiency, and calculation. Meanwhile, the Althari watched from their damaged stations, hearts pounding. They could barely recognize the fleet approaching them. Humans had come not as negotiators, not as diplomats, but as warriors, calm, relentless, and terrifying. Some Althari whispered, "We were desperate. And yet, this is beyond what we imagined." Suddenly, the enemy attacked. Warlord ships surged forward, laser cannons blazing. Explosions lit the darkness, cutting through space like fiery ribbons. But the humans were ready. The Supreme turned smoothly, unleashing a concentrated volley that destroyed 3 warlord destroyers before they could fire a second shot. Smaller ships flanked the enemy, cutting off escape routes. Every maneuver was Calculated, every shot purposeful. Humans were not just fighting. They were dancing across the battlefield with lethal grace. The Althari could only watch, eyes wide with awe and fear. This was no ordinary military force. Humans were precise, fearless, and unpredictable. They struck at weak points, avoided traps, and protected the innocent wherever possible. Civilians aboard Althari transport ships were shielded and guided to safety, even while the humans tore the enemy apart. Amidst the chaos, Kira's calm voice echoed across the bridge. Focus on strategy, not fear. Predict their moves. They will underestimate us, they always do. Her words were more than advice. They were a promise. Humans did not fight blindly. They understood the rhythm of war, the psychology of enemies, and the weight of responsibility. Each strike was a lesson, each defense a demonstration of skill and honor. The warlord commanders began to panic. Their formations fell apart. Ships collided in desperation. Communication broke down. No one had faced humans like this before. Stories of human resilience and cunning were not exaggerated. They were real and they were terrifying. The Althari whispered in disbelief. We thought they would negotiate. We thought they might bargain, but this is power beyond imagination. For hours, the battle raged. Yet even in the heat of war, humans did not lose sight of their principles. They saved the weak, evacuated the endangered, and struck only where necessary. Every Althari ship that survived bore witness to a lesson they would never forget. Humans fight not out of cruelty, not out of hatred, but out of honor, courage, and duty. As the final wave of warlord reinforcements arrived, they met the same unyielding force. Ships disintegrated before they could react. Systems collapsed under precise strikes. The humans, steady and unstoppable, advanced like a storm no enemy could withstand. By the time the first glow of dawn touched the Althari planets below, the battlefield was littered with wreckage. Yet the humans remained intact, calm, and ready for what came next. The Althari stared in awe, finally understanding the truth. Humans were not negotiators, not diplomats, not ordinary soldiers. They were an unstoppable force of will, courage, and intelligence, and somewhere, deep in the command deck of the Supreme, Admiral Kira Voss allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. Humanity had arrived. The galaxy would never forget it. The battle continued, but the humans moved differently from any force the galaxy had ever seen. They did not rush blindly into combat. Instead, they struck with precision, patience, and a strange elegance that made even the Althari shiver in awe. Every move had a purpose. Every shot had meaning. Humans were not merely fighters. They were strategists, rescuers, and protectors all at once. In the chaos of space, civilian transports fled the warlords' attacks, carrying families and children. The humans intercepted them, forming protective corridors of shielded ships. Missiles that would have destroyed these transports were intercepted and neutralized. The Althari watched in disbelief. They had been fighting for survival for centuries, yet never had they seen a species so merciless to enemies, and yet so merciful to the innocent. Commander Jalen Rourke led a squadron through an asteroid field to flank the enemy. "Stay sharp," he said, eyes scanning the instruments. "They'll never see us coming." And they didn't. The humans emerged from the shadows like ghosts, striking at weak points, disabling enemy ships without unnecessary destruction. Some of the warlord vessels surrendered simply because they could not comprehend the human skill, their calm, their determination. The Althari whispered in awe, "They are not like us. They are beyond us." Their fear was mixed with wonder. For the first time in decades, hope began to bloom in their hearts. Humans were not just saving them, they were teaching them, showing them that courage could conquer despair, that intelligence could overcome raw power. Even amidst destruction, the humans maintained their humanity. A civilian convoy came under fire, trapped between enemy lines. Without hesitation, the humans moved in. Fighters darted between laser storms, drawing fire away from the transports. Shields flared, engines roared. And when the convoy reached safety, every human pilot knew they had saved lives, not for recognition, but because it was right. Admiral Kira Voss observed from the Supreme. She did not celebrate the destruction of enemy ships. She watched her fleet act with honor, and she felt pride in the discipline, courage, and moral clarity of her people. "Remember," she said over the comms, "we fight to protect, not to destroy. Every action carries weight. Every life matters." The Althari fleet, inspired by the humans, began to fight differently as well. Their ships moved with renewed purpose. Soldiers who had lost hope found courage again. They realized that the humans' presence was not just reinforcement. It was a lesson in strategy, honor, and resilience. Enemy warlords were confused and terrified. They had expected humans to negotiate, to offer mercy, perhaps to take bribes or bend to fear. Instead, the humans acted with precision, courage, and a morality that could not be bought, bargained, or threatened. Every destroyed warlord ship sent a silent message across the battlefield. Do not underestimate humanity. Hours passed. The battlefield was chaotic, yet the humans' movements were almost poetic. They protected the weak, disabled the enemy, and reclaimed control without succumbing to anger or chaos. The Althari whispered among themselves. We begged for mercy, and what we received is something far greater. Humans do not fight like anyone else. They are not just strong, they are correct. Commander Rourke returned to Kira's bridge, breathless but exhilarated. They underestimated us, he said. Every move we made caught them off guard. We're changing the battle, Admiral. Kira nodded. And that is exactly what humanity does, she said. We do not wait for the world to come to us. We create the outcome. We protect the innocent. We act with courage. That is why they cannot defeat us. The Althari watched, hearts pounding as human ships moved across the stars with silent, unstoppable power. For the first time, the galaxy understood. Humans were not just warriors. They were a force of nature, a lesson in courage, honor, and intelligence that no enemy could ignore. And as the last of the enemy's forward units were driven back, silence swept across the battlefield. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of awe. The humans had shown their way, and the Althari had seen it, forever changing the course of their destiny. The tide of the battle was shifting. Where once the Althari had feared annihilation, now a spark of hope burned in their hearts. The humans, with their flawless strategy and unwavering courage, were changing everything. From the command deck of the Supreme, Admiral Kira Voss observed the battlefield. Red lights blinked across the holographic map, marking enemy positions. Many had already been destroyed or disabled, and the rest were faltering under the humans' relentless precision. We advance carefully, she said. But every strike must count. We protect, we fight, we win. That is our duty. Human squadrons moved through asteroid belts and orbital debris with deadly grace, cutting off enemy reinforcements and rescuing trapped Althari ships. Civilians, once cowering in fear, now cheered silently from their protected transports, their faith returning with every human maneuver. The Althari fleet, inspired by the humans' fearlessness, began to reorganize. Their broken formations slowly came together, guided by the humans' example. Ships that had been abandoned in despair were remanned. Soldiers who had trembled at the enemy's approach now stood tall. They learned from the humans, not only tactics but the meaning of courage, discipline, and purpose. In the midst of battle, human fighters executed daring flanking maneuvers. Commander Jalen Rourke led a small squadron through a narrow asteroid field, emerging behind enemy lines. With calculated strikes, they disabled several of the warlords' capital ships. The remaining enemy units panicked, scattering into chaos. The Althari could hardly believe their eyes. We were going to die, one officer whispered to another. And now, we are alive. Because of them, the humans did not stop for celebration. Every action was measured, every life valued. Even as enemy ships exploded around them, they made sure that Althari crews trapped on the battlefield were saved. Focus on the living, Kira instructed. The rest is inevitable. The warlords realized they were facing something far beyond anything they had known. They had counted on fear, on intimidation, on the Althari's desperation. None of it mattered now. Every plan they had made crumbled under the humans' brilliance. The galaxy had heard stories of human cunning, but now it was undeniable. Humans did not merely survive, they dominated. With intelligence, skill, and unshakable resolve. Back on the Supreme, Kira allowed herself a brief glance at the stars beyond. She saw the light of burning enemy ships and the shadows of civilians being saved. Humanity's presence was not only turning the battle, it was rekindling hope across the galaxy. The Althari leaders, once broken and hopeless, now coordinated with newfound confidence. They followed human directives, setting traps for the enemy and reclaiming lost territory. The lesson was clear. Humans led not with arrogance but with quiet authority, and their example empowered others to rise. As the final wave of enemy reinforcements approached, human ships struck with perfect timing. Shields flared, weapons fired, and entire fleets crumbled before they could even engage properly. The remaining warlords emptied a retreat, only to be blocked by human strategy that anticipated every move. For the first time in generations, the Althari believed victory was possible, not because of their own strength alone, but because they had witnessed the humans' unmatched skill and unwavering will. "We begged for mercy," one elder whispered, tears in his eyes. And what came was something far greater. By the time the first dawn of the Althari planet's sunrise touched the battlefield, the humans had already begun their methodical sweep of the remaining enemy forces. Civilians were safe, soldiers were inspired. Hope, once lost, now burned brighter than ever. Admiral Kira Voss looked at the stars, calm and resolute. Humanity had done what it always did, acted with courage, intelligence, and honor. They had turned despair into hope, fear into courage, and near certain defeat into victory. And the Althari, witnessing this, finally understood why humans were feared, revered, and remembered across the galaxy. The battlefield grew quieter, but the tension in space was electric. Enemy ships, once confident and aggressive, now fled in panic or lay disabled in orbit. The humans moved with calm precision, their actions deliberate, their presence commanding. Where there had been chaos, there was now order, because humans brought not just power, but understanding, intelligence, and purpose. On the bridge of the Supreme, Admiral Kira Voss observed the aftermath. Warlord fleets had been broken. Enemy leaders either fled or surrendered. Human ships glided through the void, scanning for survivors, rescuing the wounded, and ensuring no innocent life was lost. Every action spoke of discipline and honor, a combination no other species had mastered. The Althari watched in stunned silence. Their hearts, once heavy with fear and despair, now beat with awe. They had sent a desperate plea for help, not knowing what to expect. They had feared humans might negotiate, might offer minimal support, might act reluctantly. Instead, they witnessed something beyond imagination. Humans had arrived, and with them came not just survival, but victory, dignity, and a lesson in courage. Althari soldiers whispered among themselves, "We begged, and they didn't just save us. They taught us what hope truly is." Across the battlefield, human pilots carried out rescues. Stranded civilians were escorted to safety. Small transport ships, once trapped between enemy fire, now glided into protected corridors formed by human fighters. The Althari had never seen such care in war. Fierce, unrelenting power paired with compassion and respect for life. Commander Jalen Rourke reported in from the front lines, "Admiral, all enemy formations have collapsed. Remaining warlord units are retreating. Civilian casualties are minimal thanks to our corridors. The Althari are reorganizing." Kira nodded quietly. "Good, but remain vigilant. Victory is not about destruction alone. It's about leaving the galaxy intact, leaving hope alive. That is humanity's way." As the final warlord flagship exploded in a flare of fire and metal, silence swept across the stars. The Althari, watching from their stations, felt a mix of fear, relief, and awe. This silence was not empty. It was a testament to the human strength, intelligence, and moral clarity. For the first time in generations, the Althari could breathe freely. The war was over, not just because their enemies were defeated, but because they had seen what humanity was capable of. In quiet corners of the Althari fleet, soldiers wept. Some wept for the lives they had lost. Others wept in wonder, for the realization that the universe was far larger, far stranger, and far more magnificent than they had imagined. The humans had shown them that even in the darkest hour, courage, intelligence, and honor could prevail. The enemy fleet, broken and fleeing, carried a new story across the galaxy. Wordless reports described humans not just as fighters, but as a force that could not be ignored. A species whose actions spoke louder than any words. Entire civilizations would remember that day, not for the fire and destruction, but for the calm, unstoppable presence of humanity. Admiral Kira Voss allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. The humans had done what they always did. They had acted with courage when others faltered, with intelligence when others panicked, and with honor when others would have succumbed to vengeance. The galaxy had witnessed the human way, direct, disciplined, compassionate, and utterly unstoppable. And the Althari, still silent, still trembling, finally understood a truth they could scarcely put into words. Humanity did not just fight battles. Humanity changed the very nature of those battles. Humanity left a mark on the soul of the galaxy. Somewhere deep in space, far from the Althari and far from the human fleet, the universe itself seemed to pause. The lesson was clear. Desperate pleas could summon help. But when humans responded, the help they gave was more than mercy. It was awe, inspiration, and an unshakable force that left all who witnessed it silent in respect. The galaxy had learned a new truth that day. When humans acted, even the stars seemed to watch. The battlefield was quiet now. Smoke rose from shattered warlord ships, and the last survivors fled into the void. Civilian transports glided safely toward their homeworlds, guided by the humans who had fought with precision, courage, and honor. The Althari, once broken and desperate, watched in awe. Their eyes reflected relief, disbelief, and something deeper, a respect they had never imagined feeling for another species. On the bridge of the Supreme, Admiral Kira Voss stood silently surveying the aftermath. The humans did not celebrate. They had no need for glory. Their duty had been fulfilled. Every life saved, every enemy subdued, every strategy executed with careful intelligence, it had been enough. They had done what humans always did, acted decisively, honorably, and without hesitation when it mattered most. The Althari approached the humans' fleet cautiously, still in awe. Leaders and soldiers alike had never seen such a combination of strength, intelligence, and mercy. One elder, voice trembling, whispered to his fellow officers, "We begged for help, and what came was far greater than we could have imagined. Not just warriors, but teachers, protectors, and a force that changes everything." Human ships prepared to depart. Engines glowed softly, lights shimmered against the darkness, and weapon systems powered down with quiet hums. The fleet moved as one, leaving behind a galaxy forever changed. The Althari could only watch, speechless, as the humans faded into the stars. Even as they left, their impact was clear. Systems once in despair now pulsed with renewed life. Civilians returned home safely. Soldiers who had once trembled in fear now held their heads high. Inspired by humans' example, entire planets had witnessed what courage, intelligence, and honor could accomplish. Back aboard the Supreme, Kira finally allowed herself a small, proud smile. "We do not fight for praise," she said to her crew. "We fight because it is right. We act because we must. That is who humanity is." The crew nodded quietly. They had learned once again that humans were not just soldiers. They were a force that could shift the fate of the galaxy. Their actions left an echo, not of fear, but of awe and inspiration. Across Althari space, the story began to spread. The humans came, soldiers told their families. They did not bargain, they did not negotiate. They saved us. They destroyed our enemies, and they did it with intelligence, precision, and honor. Children listened wide-eyed. Leaders remembered every maneuver. Histories would be rewritten. For the first time, the Althari truly understood why humanity was spoken of in whispers, feared in battles, and revered in legends. And yet, for humans, the mission had ended simply. No songs would be sung. No statues would be built. They returned to their world, quiet and steady, leaving the galaxy with one lasting message. Courage and honor are stronger than fear and despair. In the endless void, the stars shone a little brighter that day. Somewhere across the galaxy, other civilizations would hear tales of the humans who arrived when hope was gone, who fought not for power but for justice, and whose presence alone inspired the weak to rise. The Althari would never forget. They had sent a desperate plea, expecting mercy. Instead, they received something far more profound, a lesson in humanity itself. One species had shown them that hope, courage, and intelligence were more powerful than any fleet, weapon, or empire. And deep in space, as the human fleet moved silently toward Earth, the galaxy seemed to pause in respect. The humans had left. Their actions had ended the war. Their presence had changed hearts and minds. And their legend, unshakable and eternal, would echo through time. When humans acted, the universe listened, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Althari, standing among the stars they thought they had lost forever, whispered a simple truth that would be remembered forever. Humans do not fight like anyone else. Humans inspire, humans endure, and humans always leave their mark.